is Black money?
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.
Give me some money. Hey, everybody. On that note, this is Justin Minott from the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs, here to be your host on LinkedIn Live this afternoon or morning, wherever you are coming from, maybe evening if you're coming from the other side of the planet. And I have a very special guest, Renee Dossman, President and CEO of Neighborhood Development Center here. Now, you all need to know this really does feel like Christmas morning too. I can hardly sleep. Last night, I was up in my bed. I said, just please try to count sheep, go to sleep, because we've been waiting a year to get Renee on this, one of our favorite humans on the planet, a beautiful soul, doing beautiful work. Renee, so glad to have you here.
Oh, my goodness. What an intro. It's Christmas.
It's Christmas.
Well, I feel
Christmas to me.
The same way. I couldn't sleep. I have to, we have a culture here at NDC where we start our meetings or end our meetings and sometimes even in the middle, break out in gratitude. I have to express gratitude to you and to the entire AAA CDFI organization and then all the members. It is hard out here, right? And for a long time, I was the only Black woman leading a CDFI in Minnesota. I finally got my compadre with Dorothy Bridges over at Minott, but to step into the rooms with you guys, both at present and also on Zoom, doing some really tough times, I can't express to you how grateful I am for all the resources that you provided, for the community that you create, for the work that you do on our behalf. I am truly grateful for you.
Oh, come on now. You're going to make us cry on live TV here.
No, it's true.
Thank you. Thank you, Renee. We love it. And Angela and I, we talk about this all the time, what a privilege it is to show up and serve the people who serve the people, right? It's something that it's not a job for us. We actually eat, sleep, and breathe this. So thank you. I feel that. I need to know, before we get into this episode, who is in the digital room. Hop in the LinkedIn chat and let us know who is on here with us, your name, your organization, what you got going on, because we love to do this on live for that reason. You are a part of this episode. So, Renee, your story is a unique one. It's an incredible one. You just talked about being the first Black woman in Minnesota to be leading a CDFI. Oh, and lest I forget, this is Women's History Month. And I have to say how special it is to be a Black woman, because you have Black History Month and immediately you go into Women's History Month. And so I saw a post about this and it's like, hey, it's still about us. It should be.
As it should be, all day.
All day, every day. So I love this. So you get the double excellence being a Black woman. I want to hear your journey of how you got involved and are now leading Neighborhood Development Center.
I will tell you. It is a story, and you don't have to cut me off. This needs to be a conversation.
That's what we're doing.
My team knows when I get the mic, slow down. But
we're good.
Start off in gratitude to the NDC team. They are every day they get up, their feet hit the floor, and the devil's like, watch out now, because they're into some good trouble in this community on behalf of our community. So grateful to that team. My story is, we all have this unique stories and ways that you get here. It's not like I grew up and was like, oh yeah, I want to lead a CDFI. I didn't even know what it was or what it meant. But I grew up in Chicago in Cabrini Green. the housing project in Chicago where they filmed Good Times. And it was me and my mom, single mom. She got up every morning at 4:00 in the morning to stand on the bus stop and work. And so we had a lot of different resources that people in our building and in our neighborhood did not have because my mom worked. So she taught me at a young age my life philosophy, that is, to whom much is given, much is required. And you can't just get and not give and not share. And so she shared resources with the people in the building when their money would fall short, which it often does when you're on government assistance. She'd cook up food, she'd buy school supplies, she'd do all these things for the neighborhood. And it just instilled in me that you have to give back. My mom passed away when I was 13. And I moved to live with my brother in Duluth, Minnesota, and I saw white people everywhere. And I had only known white people at my school as teachers, and that was it. Our neighborhood, it was just us, right? Like, and you're just basically, I was just trying to navigate through that neighborhood safely, right? Because it was pretty intense. But it's funny, when you're a kid, you don't even realize that you're, like, I had no idea that place was as notorious as it was. And then I moved to Duluth, and it was a whole different experience. And to be honest with you, in Chicago, I was in the gifted program, and so got exposed to a lot of different things. But I didn't take school as seriously. I was goofing off, bored, right? Like joking around, getting check marks for exercising self-control. And when I moved to Duluth, they were like, because of the way I talked, they just thought I wasn't very smart and kind of wrote me off a little bit and were like, And then I had that thought of, I got to prove them wrong. Like, oh, I know this stuff. I can figure it out. And so that started my love with, or just accelerated my love of education. So I ended up high school, college there, first person in my family to go to college, and now first person in my family to get my master's degree, which I just recently completed in January.
Hey, congratulations. I love it.
Organizational leadership. Yes. Wow. Very proud of that. My mom was there looking down on me. I felt her presence the whole day. But when I moved, when I finished college, I moved down to Minneapolis, which is where I am now. I'm actually in St. Paul, Minnesota, but and worked for Cargill as an accountant and an auditor, and was like, who would think a Black girl from Cabrini is going to be climbing down into grain silos, right? Like, what? Like, this doesn't happen. And did accounting and auditing, and was like, they did Myers-Briggs once and pointed out people, and they pointed to this dot on the board because I'm an ENFP. And they were like, who is this? The person that, and everybody in the, turned and looked at me because I was so I'm such a raging E. The accountants were such I's. They were such introverts. It was so funny. And I had a moment of, oh, wait, maybe there's something else I could be doing.
Right.
So I went to Target.
Right. One of these things is not like the other.
And that's exactly what it felt like. And so I'm at Target. I go to Target, and I do Barbie. So shout out to Barbie. And I started in that department, and then moved through and ended up staying there for over 21 years. Wow. And when I left, I led the global food trend and design team. So we traveled around the world looking for food products and ideas and flavors for our own brands. And then I left. I got my coaching certification, so I'm an executive coach. And then I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I know I probably want to leave Target, but what? Went down to Southeastern Grocers with my old boss and worked for Winn-Dixie and Bilo, and started new store concepts, built out a African-American store concept, a fresh food store concept, and a Hispanic store concept called Fresco y Mas. So we designed and built those out from scratch, and I loved it. In the meantime, and in between time, my husband, Ben, was here holding down the fort in Minnesota, and I was traveling back and forth. And we had opened up a restaurant called Fat Chance here in our city in Brooklyn Park, where we lived. And he was doing that. And then we have a organization where we provide long-term supportive housing to homeless men. And we've been doing that for many years. And so he was doing that, I was doing this. And then finally I was like, I just need to come home and help with this restaurant and with our businesses. And so I did, and I did that for a little bit, and I was like, this restaurant business is hard.
Oh yeah, food service is no joke, and the margins are skinny, and it's
and I have so much love and respect for the entrepreneurs that take that journey and
because
do that
they
work.
build so much community. Like they're a fabric of wherever they are. It's incredible.
That was it, and you're just in the mix with everybody. And so we were growing that. We did the Super Bowl when it was here. We expanded into some colleges and did everything. But there was this point of, I was like, well, do I want to do this every day? Do I want to show up here every day? And I was like, I think I want to do something different. And my husband was like, I think I want to just continue to build out the other work we're doing. Right. And so we closed the restaurant, and that was a really tough day. And it was really hard. But I just want to thank all the people that worked with us on that journey and all my friends and family for their support. That was a hard time. Mm-hmm. But I eventually saw this opportunity at Neighborhood Development Center, talked to a couple friends of mine. They were like, oh, that's a great organization. And I was like, where were they when we had the restaurant?
Right.
This organization, what? And so I remember just getting still and just talking to God about, like, I want to be obedient. So where do you want me to go? But God, I'll go anywhere except for a nonprofit, because I don't want to work.
Right. Just don't. Why are you gonna do except for when you're talking to God?
I know, and that's the iron. That's the joke, right? God was like, I got something for you, right?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I ended up interviewing, and this organization, NDC, has been around for over 30 years. It was founded by a man named Mike Tamale, and he, I talked and was like, because I didn't really want to do this, because I'm like, I don't know anything about lending, what, loans, real estate, no. I can tell you the best place to get some food around here, the best restaurants. I can tell you some great flavors that you should look at. But but I was obedient, and I talked to people and reached out into my community, and was like, they were like, no, it's a great organization. I think they need you. And it's funny, if you think about all the different things I did to get to this point, it was all leading me here. And so at NDC, we support entrepreneurs, primarily entrepreneurs of color, in community. We focus on the 10, and we've recently added a couple of communities, low to lowest income neighborhoods in the metro. And we do training. So we have a couple hundred entrepreneurs a year that go through our training program. We do workshops, train you. You can be great at making like fried chicken, or you could be great hairstylist, but you don't really know the fundamentals of how to run a business. And so that's where the training comes in, teaching you really about how to run a business. We help about 800 entrepreneurs a year throughout all of our pillars. And then we do lending, as you well know. We're CDFI, one of the first few in Minnesota. And so we do, our lending is really about your character, not as much about your credit score, your collateral. We have some programs now that help entrepreneurs build up their credit, their personal credit. So we call that the Credit Up program. We do that. And then we do business development or technical assistance. And that takes the gamut, right? So that's helping with marketing, branding, technology. When everything happened after the murder of George Floyd, and during COVID, we realized too that we needed to do something for entrepreneurs as it relates to their mental wellness, right? Because if you think about that time, we were all just, and especially here in Minneapolis, one of our incubators is about 8 blocks away from where Mr. Floyd was murdered. So it just hit us really hard and hit us in a different way. And we just encountered entrepreneurs that were just struggling. So we do mindset reset, where they can opt in and get the support that they need, because it's a whole person. It's not just this business side. It's a whole person. We do that. We started a program for Black and Latino women that I am really proud of called Block.
Love that.
Because we found that they were Black women and Latino women were not making it all the way through. They might get to training and not make it through. So we looked at the data and talked to them. Because that's another thing when you're starting a program. How about ask the people that you're doing the program for?
How about that?
How about that? And they told us, they needed some additional training around their finances. They needed some additional support. And we had some funders early on that came on and allowed us to test. At Target, I ran the innovation team for grocery. And so the ability to do design thinking and to test and to iterate and to try is something that unfortunately most nonprofits are not allowed to be able to do, because the funders are like, no, you got to use the money for just this.
You're catering to their set of outcomes, right?
Yeah, but we are so blessed because we have some funders that are like, try it. Let's try it. Wow. See if it works. Tweak it. Do what you need to do. And so we've been doing that with Block. Feel really proud of that program. And and then the final one is real estate. So we do real estate development. We're in the process right now of building out. We're calling it Launchpad. It's on the corner of Lake in Chicago, which is, like I said, about 8 blocks away from where Mr. Floyd was murdered. And we look at that site, and every time I think about it, I just, because that site was actually burned down during the uprising, where we're going to build this beacon of hope. And it's about coming out of those ashes. What can we create for community in that place? Not normal where you think we'd go. We are really pushing in that space to do some things with technology, with med tech, really being an innovation site, pushing the boundaries of what people think our entrepreneurs can do. We have about 5 or 6 incubators around the metro. And one of them, we're doing a partnership with Metro State on cybersecurity, because we're understanding that obviously, as we all know, I'm sure we've all had experiences. I know we've talked about it in some of our meetings with cybersecurity. So we're doing that and just trying to provide affordable commercial real estate to these entrepreneurs, because it's one thing to get your loan, start your business, and then you can't afford
to get a space.
The space.
So common. Yeah. I love what you're doing. I have so many questions right now that are coming out of this. So specifically, you were mentioning about the kind of these craftspeople, these business owners who are really good at their craft, but need to now get into the business side, which is an entirely different craft, the skill set of running a business. What do you think it takes to make that transition for the people who are good at what they do and want to really turn this into more of a business or want to grow this beyond? What do you think that takes?
I think it's what you said, like this, the desire. Are you willing to be a student? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to be open to suggestion?
Like the beginner's mind.
And like, are you okay with trying something a little bit different instead of just going out there and thinking you're going to make it work, right? Like, how do you lean into these resources? Are you curious? One of the key coaching tenets of the model that I use is about curiosity. So are you curious about your surroundings? Are you a networker? Are you like, here's the deal, like, entrepreneurship, everybody's gonna be like, duh. It's hard.
It is hard.
It's really, really hard. And so you gotta be ready for this journey. And so staying curious and wanting to continue to grow your craft. How do you continue to get that education, get those trainings to get you ready?
I love that. Now, something I'm really curious about, speaking of curiosity, right? You have a very different path that has led you into the nonprofit space, into the CDFI space. You talked about some of what you
Mhm.
didn't know how to do coming in. What do you feel on the other side, though, have been your superpowers? Some of these unintended things that you picked up along the way that all of a sudden, like you were talking about being able to test and iterate, that's not typical in the nonprofit space. What
Mhm.
else did you pick up along the way? And by the way, for everybody who's listening, I'm asking this because I want you all to be paying attention to how your journey is shaping you for something that you might not have any idea that you're going to head into. And I want you to trust the journey, right? That you might end up leading a CDFI and you know
Mhm.
nothing about lending. Cool, let's go, right? So I want to hear
Still
that
can
from
do it.
you. What are some of the unique things, that unintended consequences in a good way, of some of your path?
I love that. I love that question. And it's so funny that you say superpower. I don't know if
Oh
you
yeah,
can see this, but we did these my superpower is at the
there we
first
go.
team, because I believe everybody has a superpower. And I start off with that with when I'm
Okay, so
coaching
what's
people,
yours?
is to talk about their superpowers. So mine is about the ability to connect and lead. Like I love like strength finders. We're a strength focused organization, so we focus on strengths, and I think it is so much easier to navigate any work in this life if you're doing it from a position of strength versus a position of what
Right.
you can't do. You will never see me have a clean desk,
Me neither. Hey,
and
this is
so
encouraging.
that's never it, if I could pan right now, you guys would be like, woo.
And my mama tried.
And so
She's like, just organize a little
just
bit.
I know
Just, she did her
just
best. God bless
a
her.
little. And I know. And I remember like at Target, people were like, well, gosh, but your desk is so messy. But if I ask you for something, you
Yes.
can find it, right? So I know that that's not my strength. It's not, but surrounding yourself with people that are really organized and on their game is the key. So for me, though, it's the connection. Like I genuinely care about people and about their well-being and how they're doing, and getting to know them on a more personal level. Like I'm not, people will laugh at this. I said I do not like politics. I'm not political. I'm way too like real, like let's just really have the conversation. And so the ability, my ability to meet you where you are and to never have met a stranger. So one of my signature strengths is woo, and woo for strength finders. You're in the mix and you're over here, and instead of being drained, is amped up. And I'm honest to a fault. And so when I came into this work, I didn't try to act like I knew what I was talking about, because I didn't, because
I
people
love
would say
that.
stuff and I'd have to write it down, and then I'd ask questions later, or I'd look it up
What's a
on
loan
my
loss
phone.
reserve, right?
What is that? What is a CDFI? What does it stand for again?
Right.
Real talk.
Which, for our listeners, Community Development Financial Institution. That's a big part of this series, actually, because not enough people know about this mission-centered lending that CDFIs do. So yes, we're all getting to this.
So I'm open to just being a sponge. And as a result, people, what I found, Justin, is that people, like I was just saying this to someone the other day, they love talking. They love sharing. I haven't really come across somebody that I would ask them a question or how did you do that? And they don't want to share. Like most people want to share, and most of our entrepreneurs, like every entrepreneur we deal with, they're like, I want to give something back to community. It's never just about them. It's always about other people. So that's my superpower, I think, is that I love making genuine, true connections with people, because I feel so blessed to be in the company of others.
Yes. Now, what are some of the tools that you picked up along the way that you feel like have been beneficial that you did not foresee? Because you are in a very different space than what you thought you'd end up in. So let's talk about that.
The relationship building, right? Like Target still supports us. And even, I'm not there, they still, so you never friends at US Bank, friends at Wells Fargo, friends at Allianz, all these places, all these different, and then new friends that you're meeting amongst these foundations, like the relationships that we've built with like the Constellation Fund that's doing this thing differently, right? Using data. And if you, my geeking out on like financials and numbers and analytics and that stuff, which comes from me being an accountant and an auditor and then being a business analyst at Target. I love that stuff. I love getting into the numbers. I love using data. I have a ton of statistics if we get into it about the state of Minnesota.
We're going to then. We're not letting you have those statistics for nothing.
Right.
On that
and not use them. Right. But
that's what I'm saying.
I love it. I love having the data to support it, because when I was in trends, you couldn't just say we should do acai or we should be moving into ready-made meals. You needed to have some data and some analytics to support it. So I think that's something that I was not thinking I would be using so much in this nonprofit space. Yeah. And I also have to be honest with you. I love the book by Heather McGhee, The Sum of Us. It's like one of my favorite books.
Okay.
And it talked about this concept of, and I talk about it all the time, so it's the solidarity dividend.
Yeah.
And it's about how we're all better together. And that there's really, and I was on another panel earlier, and there was like, when Black people do better, we all do better.
Yeah.
It's not a zero-sum game. It's not a zero-sum mentality. And so, when I came into this nonprofit space, I thought we would all be linking arms, singing Kumbaya together, doing, not necessarily, right? And I learned, and then something tragic happened, and I think it brought us together in a bigger way, right? We formed a Minnesota CDFI coalition. We've done all these different things. So yeah, that relationship building, that coming together, not having this scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
There's so much abundance out there.
Yes.
And that's what I love about the AAA, is that we operate from a position of abundance.
Yes. That is when we do our best.
Yes.
Everything. I love all of this. This is wonderful. Something that I want to actually pivot into that leads off of this. You talked about having this strength-focused mentality and also having a different way that you underwrite your entrepreneurs. And I actually feel like that's a very similar thing, that you're focusing on an asset-based mentality when you're underwriting some of these deals. You said you underwrite on character. What are you really looking for? How are you measuring? How are you underwriting practically these deals for our CDFI listeners and other mission-based lenders who are tuning in here? And then also talk to us as transparently as you can about default rates and some of those things, because you have this different process. How's that actually working out for you? For real?
Real talk.
Yeah.
It is working out. Okay, so here's the deal with it. Our default rate is around 3%, fluctuates between 2 and 3%.
Wow.
And like I said, low to lowest income, no collateral, not the best credit scores. But the trick, the key is the wraparound services that we provide. It's the technical assistance. It's the ability for you to come to us and for us to help you and support you in all aspects of your business. It's the fact that we can work with our partners to get low interest money to be able to lend out, so that we don't feel this need that we have to lend this money out at this exorbitant rate. We can keep
de-risk it by lending at 15%, which actually doesn't really de-risk anything because you're making people default. Anyway, continue.
Exactly. And don't even get me started on the predatory lenders. Don't get me started. I can't even, I can't. Because that's just horrible on so many levels. So I think it's because we come along beside you, but it's really, about your character. And I think our rate went up, default rate went up a little bit as a result of COVID, because I think we were doing some loans and we didn't really know people. To put it in perspective, NDC had done about $29 million in loans in its 30-year history. just during the pandemic, we did over $20 million in grants and loans, and like we did PPP, we did every single SBE, every single program from any county, state government to get money out. Because that's the biggest thing, right? Access to capital for our entrepreneurs is not easy. And that's why we're CDFI. So what we look at is your character. We talk to you about our mission and what we're trying to do. So it's not just about you. If you default on this, what about the person behind you? And then how do we have those conversations early and often to make sure that you are getting what you need, that you're getting the support you need, that we're aligning you with additional resources if you need it, that we're giving you some grace. And how do we get you set up that you're getting your own personal credit together with our credit builder program? So it's a journey, but it's necessary because we need to give people the opportunity. Yeah. That's all this is about, is giving them the opportunity.
That's it. But you're doing it as a partner, which I love. Like, you're not just throwing money out there. You're saying, we're really walking this with you and we're in it. And I think people feel that as they journey forward. So talk about the CDFI space. Why do you feel like this space is so important? Why are you playing in this space? Because it's not easy to do, but it's worth it.
Well, I mean, we talk about creating generational wealth, right? And if I think about, to put in some of my statistics, Minnesota has the second biggest poverty gap rate in the nation. It's almost 300%. The median wealth, it's astounding. This is a state of great abundance, but also great disparity, especially when it comes to people of color. So if you think about we talk about generational wealth and wealth creation, the wealth gap for Minnesotans. So for white Minnesotans, it's $211,000. For Hispanic Minnesotans, it's $18,000. And I'd like you to venture a guess for what it is.
And you're talking about net worth, or
the wealth gap, the income.
Yeah. I don't even want to know if you're talking about 18,000, 11?
0.
Hold on, break that down.
From the Federal Reserve, it's crazy. The median household wealth is 0 in Minnesota.
0.
So that's why we do what we do, right? Because we know that entrepreneurship is one vehicle for that, and home ownership, which I know there's different CDFIs that do home ownership, making sure that you're properly insured, making sure that you're doing all these different things, contributing to your 401k, all these things, but we have a ways to go. So, and in the communities that we serve, on this corner that I sit right now, with our new office building that we built 2 years ago, very proud to be in Frogtown. On the corner of University and Dale and St. Paul, it is there. You can see it, right? And so I will not rest until we move the needle on some of these disparities in this state. And none of us should rest, and none of us should be okay with the fact that we have these glaring disparities. This is just in the state of Minnesota. I mean, we know that this exists everywhere, right? So we talked about a little bit earlier, one of our key focus areas, as I think about our strategic plan that we just did, first of all, is to focus on the team, because people forget in the nonprofit space, like, you need a team to do this work. This is right. Like,
and they need to be well.
They need to be well, and they need to be financially well.
Yeah.
They need to, if I want to get these entrepreneurs to generational wealth, I want my team to be at generational wealth. So how do I make sure that they can buy a house if they want to, that we can support them in that endeavor? If they want to go back to school, how do we do that, right? But then it's also thinking about these entrepreneurs and thinking about how do they have different streams of revenue? Because if you think about it, most of them are barely able to pay for themselves, right? Like barely able to support themselves. They can't pay themselves money. We learned as I've been doing research on this, that, most, especially Black-owned businesses, they're obviously under-resourced, underfunded. We end up losing the businesses because we can't get the resources and the things that we need. So when we start thinking about that, how do we change that paradigm? How do we provide you with the support? They're not asking for a handout. They're just asking for a hand up. Like, can you just help us get here? And if you think about, they've been talking a lot about Black female entrepreneurs starting these businesses, which I love, right? The largest increase in businesses started have been with Black women. And I love that. But only 3% of those businesses, of those Black-owned women businesses, survive longer than 5 years.
Wow.
Only 3%, and that's from Forbes. So we have work to do, but that's why we do the work that we do to create programs like Block, right? In partnership. And that's the other thing that I'd say is that sometimes this work can feel really lonely. That's why I'm so grateful for the Alliance. And I seriously, this work can be lonely because you feel like you're just, but there are people I can't even tell you that come along the way that just inspire me to keep going. Like watching Arlo's documentary, like, where he's doing that, right? Like, I'm like, there's just these, it's not, and then when I look around, it's not just me, it's all of us coming together in solidarity to do this work. It's,
And that's what it takes. I mean, I love, this is so timely because we're just getting ready soon to be doing some more announcements about our upcoming conference for the Alliance. The theme is the power of us. So when you were talking about the sum of us, as this book that you're reading, I just love this piece around solidarity and what it takes in partnership. I want to talk about what it takes for these businesses to now grow, right? It's one thing to start them, but we're talking about actually growing them. And one stat that we were talking about on the pregame show, I was watching this clip from Ryan, one of the co-founders of the Gathering Spot in Atlanta. He was talking about how over 90%, I believe it's about 95% of Black-owned businesses stay at solopreneur. They're not hiring anybody. And so, and at that point, one of my mentors would say, you don't really have a business, you have a job. You're self-employed, right? Like but a business is one that it sustains itself, that doesn't actually really need you over time. That's when you have a business, right? And it's employing people and, providing more. It's like a tree that provides shade and fruit, right? It's this beautiful thing in a community. But a lot of Black businesses are not moving from my self-employed kind of venture and craft to a business, right?
Absolutely.
That is doing more, doing bigger. And it is so possible for these businesses. What does it take practically? And even mentality wise, some people don't see themselves there yet.
Yes. Yeah. And oh my gosh, you are so speaking my language right now, right? Because that's what I've been saying to the team as a part of our strategic plan. Our financial sustainability, we as NDC, we need to be financially sustainable. And that's partially because I come from this Black background of corporate, right? Where it's like you are making money and you're doing things for yourself. And I love that we get support from funders, but sometimes, as a Black woman leading an organization, I know I'm not going to get the funding that my counterparts might receive, my white counterpart. Like, I just know we don't even need it. It's statistically proven, right? And so as a result, I want us to be sustainable, right? To be able to try to test the blocks. And we're going to be doing some things with cannabis. We're going to be doing some things with developers of color. We're going to be partaking on the green and initiatives and in partnership with you all. And so I want us to be able to do those things and test those things. And sometimes the funding isn't there at the time. So I want us to be able to go forward. We know what's needed in community. We're boots on the ground. We're not an organization that sits up here and we are in community. Our trainings are held in community, in the communities that we've talked about, these low to lowest income communities. So when I think about that, I also think about that same mentality for these entrepreneurs, they need different streams of revenue. If there's one thing, we have one of our largest incubators that we co-own with the organization called the Cultural Wellness Center is the Midtown Global Market. And that's the one that I said was about 8 blocks from where Mr. Floyd was murdered. And that's the one that they tried to burn down when everything was happening. And that the people in the community, the people that live in that building, there's families that live in that building because there's condos in there. They surrounded it and kept it safe during that time. So when I think about that, as a result of everything that happened during that time, and I think about what happened with PPP and people couldn't get access to it because they didn't have proper banking relationships, which is why CDFIs exist. And I think about all of that. But I think about there were entrepreneurs that we were supporting at that time, which is why we came up with this program called Tech Pack. They didn't even have delivery set up. They had no other, you had to come to them and that was it. And
it's like DM me on Instagram to, that's.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
and hit me up on Cash App, pay me via Cash App.
Something. But some of them weren't even they weren't even set up for any of that and didn't have their websites created and all of those things. So the ability for you to have different streams of revenue is really imperative. So now we're talking about that and making sure that happens.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So here's where I want us to close today is where is NDC heading? You're talking about your strategic vision. Paint a picture of the future for us and what it takes for you to get there, because as the Alliance and everybody listening, we're here to champion you.
Oh, I appreciate this. Well, opportunities like this to share and to highlight my team and all of those people that support us along this journey is just a blessing. And so I thank you for that. We are embarking on a very ambitious project. We got a couple things building off the building that we're building on the corner of Lake in Chicago, the launch pad, the innovation center is one thing. The cybersecurity that we're putting together on the east side of St. Paul, go east side, is another. But the biggest thing that I feel that I'm really grateful for is that we had an appropriation from the state. We had a significant surplus where we received as NDC $72 million to do grants.
You like the millies?
I love
Everybody
the
better
millies.
put their hands together for the millies.
$72 million to do grants for entrepreneurs, and it's based on their revenue. Up $1,000, they can get up to $50,000 in grants, and disinvested communities, very specific communities that were impacted after the murder of George Floyd and as a result of COVID. These entrepreneurs that did not receive funding because they didn't have their paperwork and they couldn't pull it together or any of that stuff. So we're doing that in community. It's set up for North Minneapolis, which is a predominantly Black area of the city, South Minneapolis, parts of that, as well as St. Paul, right where I'm sitting. People in this neighborhood, Frogtown and Rondo, can have access to that. So to have that. And then Dorothy, who I mentioned earlier, Mita, has the grant or the loan portion of that. There's loans at 3% that these entrepreneurs can get too, if they're doing some things with real estate. So
that's below inflation right now.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yes. It's legit. So we're going after it. We know it's not enough.
Sure.
But it's coming along for us, and we're doing this differently. We're engaging community partners because we want to go into those communities that sometimes get left behind, into our Somali communities, into our Hmong communities, into our Latino communities. We want to get in there, into our Black communities. And so we're partnering with organizations, and we're doing these community tables where people from the neighborhood, people from these organizations will come and approve the grants, and then we'll disperse the NDC will disperse the money. But we got stories to tell, and this is just a start. We hope that this just sets the stage for how we want to do this forward, but it's never been done before in the state to award this amount of money to a nonprofit like this for these kinds of funds for entrepreneurs, low-income entrepreneurs. So we feel really blessed to be doing that. And Shahir Ahmed and Melissa and a whole team, but Shahir is leading this work. I tapped him on the shoulder. He was leading and is still leading our training team and our business services, but he was like, I'll do it. It's history making.
Wow, it is. This is history making. I love this. In Women's History Month, coming off of Black History Month, we're talking about making history. These are the things I'm just so excited to celebrate 25 years from now when we're celebrating these things and look back on all of these beautiful moments. I love what you're doing. Love who you are. I want to encourage everybody who is listening. Thank you so much for tuning in today. One thing that I ask of you that costs you nothing but about 10 seconds is hit the share button on this interview and share this with your network, because your reach, you touch however many people you do, and just being able to put this in front of folks, you never know where that leads to. Funding for Renee's organization, a connection, a community partnership, whatever. You never know what it leads to. So hit the share button, blast this out, because everyone needs to know what NDC is doing and needs to know about our friend Renee. Again, I told you this is like Christmas Day for me. Been waiting for this for a long time. So thank you, Renee, for being who you are. Thanks for the work that you're doing, and keep changing the world. Any closing thoughts for our listeners?
No, I just want to end in gratitude. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm blessed to be working with a team of people that believe in this mission of dismantling systematic racism through the lens of entrepreneurship. And one thing I did forget to mention is that as I think about when we talk about these entrepreneurs being able to do, like, how do we start thinking differently about acquisition? How do we think differently about how they scale up their businesses? How do we look at different vehicles and different ways for them to truly grow their businesses and grow their wealth? You don't always have to start it. We're getting ready to have the biggest transfer of wealth that this nation's seen right now, as these boomers and all these different things happen. Right. So how can we be a part of that? How can we be at that table? I want to thank you guys for leading the way with this green and this gas, like all of these funds that are going to be coming into our community. How can we make sure that we harness that and use that to the benefit for all? Because it's for all of us.
Yes, that's exactly right. Way to close it out. Way to land the plane. All right, everybody, keep changing the world. Thanks for being here. Thank you. We will see you again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is Black Money.
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up, because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how to fish. Give me some money.